Hello, everybody. Tommy Moore here, which hopefully you know if you're on this channel. I recently did a presentation or received a presentation from the Kinsella Trust, which is a charity dedicated to the prevention of knife crime and knife culture in the UK. And it's a legacy trust based on a young man called Ben Kinsella, who a good number of years ago now fell victim to knife crime, and his family made the trust to help support and engage young people, teachers, carers, social workers, and so on, to make sure that no more young people die as unnecessary victims to knife crime. And what I thought I'd do is pull together and kind of speed read you through some of the interesting parts of that presentation. It was phenomenal. It was really, really great. And I'd really encourage you, if you're a martial arts instructor or a parent or whatever level of influence you might have over young people, to get yourself booked onto a presentation or a workshop, which can be 1 hour, 3 hours, or 6 hours, and those can be face-to-face or virtual. Get yourself to one of their training centres. I believe the main one's based in the City of London. Or what you can at least do, if you do enjoy some of the materials on this, is drop them a couple of quid on their charity page. If you just Google Kinsella Trust, throw a couple of quid their way, because they do an amazing, amazing work. But I'm going to take you kind of on a flash run through some of the bits I thought were interesting, to give you a bit of a taster. So obviously, the presentation is long and robust and goes into a lot more detail than I'll go into with you now, but just to give you a bit of a flavour. It talks about the pressures that are on young people already: exams, appearances, friendships, relationships, identity, neurodiversity, belonging, money, status. All these things are bubbling around young people's minds, and that can cause and provide opportunities for knife crime and knife related violence to kind of seep into their world. It's really important to understand the context of everything. It's not neat little boxes. All of these things can be a factor into why you might carry, use, or be a victim of knife in a knife crime context. And for young people, they're facing the idea, or many young people in the UK are facing the idea of knife crime and violence on a daily basis. But it's something where you might not even be aware. You might not be remotely aware. As far as you know, you've dropped them off to school, you've picked them up from school, they're playing Xbox with their friends in the evening. Because violence isn't in your world and in your work and in your life, you might assume that it's not in their world or their lives. And if it was, they'd talk to you about it, which often isn't the case. Quotes throughout this presentation for young people: don't tell me everything's okay. If I feel like violence is all around me, the fear is real. And adults and young people alike, they see these kind of headlines all the time. Boy 12 arrested after teenage girl is stabbed. Ava White, boy who killed girl 12 in Snapchat row, gets life. Islington knife horror as boy 15 and man 23 stabbed to death during a music video shoot in Archway. And we see these things time and time and time again. And we see them more often because they are A, happening more often, and B, because our access to media and the speed of media and the locality of media, you can get news from your street. It's a lot more present in your life and their lives, and that normalization can sometimes also lead to more uses of and instances of knife crime. So it's something to be aware of. Now, the horrific stats, and this is just a snapshot of some of the things that the Kinsella Trust show you, but some of the scaries here: 80%. Knife crime has increased by 80% in 10 years. 80%. Now, if any other risk factor in your life increased by 80%, you would work really hard to mitigate against it. If your likelihood of drowning went up 80%, you'd spend a lot more time swimming. When it comes to knife crime, us as martial artists and martial arts instructors, our allocation of time to think about it, talk about it, learn first aid, learn all of these things and be aware and cascade and advise and support, that too should really go up 80% if we're 80% more likely to fall victim to it. 82% of homicides amongst teenage victims involve a knife or a sharp instrument. So not only 80% more likely to happen, it's 82% likely to be the thing that kills you. That is the worst possible outcome. So again, it's the deadliest, and it's increasing in frequency. And teenagers are twice as likely to be murdered with a knife than they were 10 years ago. Twice as likely. So again, you can't treat this subject matter too lightly. You need to be very aware and very on the pulse of the stats, facts, figures, and realities. And these are just a glimpse, because these are the things that are reported. You can only imagine the volume of things that are not reported. And that is terrifying in itself. So some of these numbers might be too low for the realities out there. And so that should really manifest in your training and your advice and your guidance for young people wherever you can. And the motivation for carrying these things, it may be an offensive motivation. I need it to get stuff done. I need it to sell these drugs, because if I don't sell these drugs, they're going to hurt me or my family. It might be defensively. There's a lot of guys here carrying knives as they're selling their drugs. I might need it, otherwise I'm going to be a victim, or my little sister's going to be a victim, or my mom's going to be a victim. That fear, that violence, whether you're delivering, likely to be receiving, or both. There's a lot of motivation out there for the young people to be carrying. And there's the peer influences too. If all of your friends and all of your members of your family and people you trust and people you know and people you love carry and normalize it, you too will carry and be normalized. And therefore it doesn't seem extraordinary, it doesn't seem odd in any way. And it's a bit of a contagion. It can level up and grow with you as a younger person if you start to carry and you start to use it, or you have these things used on you. It's infectious and it's going to grow, and you might carry bigger and more and advocate more and encourage others to do the same, and it can grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And young people aren't stupid. If people are carrying blades in an area, and let's say they are small flip knives, pocket knives, Stanley blades, utility knives, whatever, and another group on another street and another gang start carrying machetes, the ones with machetes are going to win. Now, you might think logically, smaller, foldable, concealable, deniable knives are smarter and wiser. But it's a bit of an arm race on those streets, in that if you pull a flip knife and they pull a machete, they win. They've got the psychological edge, the physical edge, the danger edge. And so this is all escalating, and knives and knife carrying is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the risk factors for it are obviously the mental health side. There's pressure. If you're carrying that blade, you're carrying any weapon, sometimes can add a lot of pressure to where you walk and where you stand and what you wear and who you speak to and when you speak to them. There's not just the usage of it on that maybe once in a lifetime day where it does come out, but there's that constant pressure or kind of impact it can have on your mind, on your spirit, on your soul. The inclination to use it on yourself, self-harm, suicide, depression, all these things can kind of really bear fruit. You get caught, very likely you're going to get excluded from school. And what does that do? A, it puts you on the streets. Or B, if it doesn't put you on the streets, it's going to put you in a school like in the schools I used to teach in, a pupil referral unit, essentially a school full of other bad kids and kids that are on the bad path. It doesn't end well. Proofs do not end well for anybody. And I can hand on heart say that. There are very few redeemable people within the proof system after they've been in there more than a term or two, because it becomes a gladiator school. Whether you like it or not, you see good kids that have erred slightly, 2 terms, and they're a militant bad kid. It's dangerous to get excluded for those reasons. There's a lot of risk factors that can be involved for those young people. Presentation talks about gangs and what defines a gang, and there are a lot of young people that are in gangs have no comprehension that it's a gang. It doesn't have a name, it doesn't have an identity, it's not like some kind of 20s Chicago mob, but nevertheless they find themselves with all the signs that they are in a gang. And so the presentation talks about gang risk factors. Gang definition here: the gang is a relatively durable, predominantly street-based group of young people who see themselves as a discernible group and engage in a range of criminal activity and violence. This could be territory-based, it could be race-based, ethnicity-based, religious-based, it could be postcode-based, it could be school-based, but there's an us and them divide. And so you can see it pretty easily and pretty quickly. You can find yourself in a gang without knowing you're in a gang. Dynamics and psychology in gangs is very, very different to personal, individual psychology and dynamics. So again, that's what the presentation looks at. It talks about structure of a gang, in that faces and olders. Now we say olders, but these people could be 30, could be late 20s, but in the gang kind of life cycle, they are esteemed village elders. Yep, the elders, these might be your 16, 18, these are kind of your mid-management leadership. If your faces and elders are your CEO, your elders are your kind of your management board. And then you've got your youngers, which are your soldiers on the streets, running the violence, running the drugs. And then you've got runners, shotters, tinies. These are young people that might even know what they're doing, but they're told to take that package over there, hide that knife for me, put this somewhere else. They're task based, and they could be anywhere from 5 years old upwards. So you can find yourself, these structures mirror businesses, because they are in effect businesses, and where people are relationally on this dictates their level of threat, the danger they might be in, and the likelihood they'll be carrying or be affected by knife crime. So the presentation is really great at looking into things like that, and how exploitation can begin in return for small favors. If you're hungry and your family's hungry, you haven't got much to eat, and someone offers you chicken and chips or a bit of food, bit of money, fiver here for a small innocuous act, carry that, take that there. Stand here with me while I do this. Can I use your phone for that? So that small favor request gets instantly rewarded with food, money, clothing, status. That is intoxicating and powerful, but can start young people on a slippery slope where they don't even realize they're in a toxic relationship and they are being exploited. Really interesting stuff. And we showcase this, the stages of exploitation, how young people might be targeted because, hey, they might not be the sharpest tools in the shed. They might be lonely. They might not have friends or girlfriends. They might not have money. So you've been clocked as a desirable target. You're going to be given some kind of test task, in exchange for X or Y. I want you to do this, carry this, be there, look at this, film this, phone that. There's going to be a test, and if that works out all right, you're kind of then trapped in that loop of people are going to start to potentially reward you slightly, but they're going to exploit you exponentially, and that risk is going to get higher and higher and higher, and the rewards are going to get lower and lower and lower. And again, it talks about how young people are hugely at risk of this exploitative journey, and that elders and olders in the gang know exactly what they're doing. And you might think, well, my kid goes to a normal, middle class, friendly school. These are precisely the kinds of people that the elders and olders want. People that aren't going to be stopped, that aren't known faces to the police, that seem well to do. These can be some of your ripest audience for exploitation. And for a lot of those people, the idea of being approached by someone a bit more street with a bit more cred, that's flattering and evocative and engaging for them. And that can start them on the bad path. So really interesting stuff. And it goes into and talks about the idea of county lines, which is essentially how drugs are moved and manipulated across the nation, really. So as opposed to it being a hub model where someone might come in, acquire a wholesale amount of drugs and take them back to their provincial town or city or whatever. It's the idea that these gangs are centrally running out young people to a location. They've got dedicated phone lines and dedicated numbers to work with, and they can order and select and mule drugs to those places. So they can bring the drugs directly to those areas that wouldn't normally have access to them, and they become the kind of affiliate system. But bear in mind that this can involve high levels of threat and fear, debt bondage, all sorts of stuff. Because if you've got a young person and you start to ask little favors of them, carry this, do this, you exchange it for a bit of money, bit of food, bit of status. Next thing you know, they're like, right, I need you to go stay in this Airbnb for 3 weeks. And if people knock on the door, you give them one of those packages. And that gets worse and worse and worse. And you become more and more isolated, surrounded by more and more dangerous people. And let's say those dangerous people take or steal those drugs, that money, that phone, whatever. They're going to hold you responsible for it. And you might be the person that needs to be punished so it doesn't happen again. You might become the cautionary tale. So the idea of county lines and how young people get targeted, exploited, rinsed for all their worth and have to take up the most dangerous positions by being sent to do things and be in places that put them in huge amounts of risk and danger from attack, injury, arrest, slipping into drugs misuse themselves. All these things are contributory factors to knife crime. So if I say, right, take those packages, go to that town, you're staying in that Airbnb for a month, don't you let anyone take this package from you, you probably are going to start carrying a knife. And you're probably going to be more fearful that knives might be used against you. So these things can exacerbate hugely. Talks about social media and young people and how the impact of social media can make you more likely to use or be a victim of knife crime. It talks about things like music videos and grime and drill, gaming platforms, gaming chats. All of these have different ramifications for people's likeliness to get involved in knife crime. And it's really interesting in the presentation to see how these innocuous tools, and I'm a no ban kind of person. I was playing adult games pretty much straight away when I was young. I was playing all sorts of stuff, but the game has changed. And whilst I'm against huge levels of control, it's really interesting to see what factors in music videos and what factors in games might be affecting those young people and make them more likely to carry or more likely to become victims of it. This is a little bit more London centric, but it talks about drill and gang music and how that can start to build kind of beef and anger and discord in communities and how that can make more people likely to get involved in knife crime. So it talks about how you can spot signs of what might be a gang or drill related video, the use of the gang name after a hashtag. It might be putting their street names into that area. All sorts of things. There's so many different tells and ideas, but just understanding what type of music are they listening to and what kind of risks it might put them involved with. And it's quite interesting. It talks through, because if you're a parent or a teacher or a sensei or sports club worker, you might not know what a lot of these words mean. For example, trap. You might be like, well, what the fuck's trap? You have no idea. Well, a trap or a trap house is a drug house. So if you're reading your young person's text messages or WhatsApps or whatever, and you're like, yeah, we're going to the trap, you'd have no idea unless you know these words. I know that trap means this. I know that food means that. I know that bagging means this. I mean, bagging, right? Bagging. I'm going to stab you in the guts and make you have to have a colostomy bag. I've given you a bag for life. Get a Ramsey. What's a Ramsey? If you see that in a text message, you see that online, you'll have no idea that could be something dangerous. Well, a Ramsey from Gordon Ramsay, chef knife, right? You have no idea. Someone getting murked, someone getting peas, someone going country, someone going crunch, someone doing OT. If you're going OT, if you're going crunch, if you're going country, you're going out of your normal town, out of your normal city to go sell drugs, probably under someone else and probably at great risk. All of these things give you an indication as to what words young people are exposed to, what that might mean when they're writing and speaking to each other, and what threats they might face. Just the knowledge of the words themselves is really powerful, and the presentation goes to those very well indeed. Because you might not have any idea what these things mean. It even breaks down some of the lyrics of the drill songs. Blood on my Rambo, blood on my kitchen, blood on my cutlass, blood on my flickting. His flesh on my knife when I dipped him, swung at his face and I ripped it. That's the least cryptic you can get, but still, blood on my Rambo knife, big knife, blood on my kitchen, blood on my cutlass. You can see how these stories and these threats, whilst it might make good music for young people, if you are in a part of the community that feels that that's directed at you, you might respond with a similar bit of music. And then suddenly what goes from rap battles and musical approaches might turn very, very physical, very, very violent, very, very quickly, for likes, for shares, for status, for territory, all those things. But understanding the core language that young people are using, again, it's an important skill. No one wants to invest time in it. People would rather focus on the physical aspects of knife self-protection, but knowing what a Ramsey is might be the one thing that you clock on a piece of Snapchat that make you think, right, shit, we need to have a better, deeper, broader discussion of where you're going right now, and what you might be doing and what you might be exposed to. And it breaks down some of the factors or tells that might let you know how or why young people is in danger. So, that secrecy, returning home late, girls being given as favors. So things like STDs, use of cabs and Ubers, young people getting cabs, Ubers. Well, where are you going? Excessively using your mobile phone, becoming extremely angry if it's confiscated, having things that don't make sense for their age, hotel cards, keys, bus and rail tickets, sudden increase in wealth and trainers and coats and jackets. Well, if it's not come from you, where are they getting the money from? All these things cumulatively can give you clues as to what you might need to be more aware of. And it's a really great presentation for reminding you of the realities that if you're in that gang life is 24/7. If you get told to go here, be here, do this, carry that, hide that, tell the police this, you're in. And it's very, very difficult to get out. And that creates so much stress and anxiety and fear and pressure. And that can be very, very, very damaging indeed. And it talks a lot about psychological factors, needs and wants, and the kind of what goes on in young people's minds when they get risk and reward situations like this. Their ability to think through the risk elements is much less developed in their brains. It talks about conversations and the power of conversations. So, for example, it talks about when you have those conversations can dictate the level of danger that young person's in. Most people don't think of knife crime per se. They think we've got beef. They don't think of the knife. The knife's just a part of that. I've got issues, got drama, got beef between me and that group, or my group and this group, and that can escalate into online bullying, sexual abuse, aggression, violence, and it gets very physical, very fast, very dangerous, very fast. So it went from the idea of I've got beef with this person to people being slashed, cut, getting a bag for life, bagging up, up to the most extreme death. These things can escalate. Those small things, those small arguments, debates, disagreements, online beef, they grow. So it talks about having meaningful conversations and how to be a better listener, be a more empathetic listener, how to draw out those things without overtly fishing for things that the young people might not be happy to share with you. How to create environments where they're more likely to share with you. And again, as martial arts instructors, parents, influencers, social workers, whatever, the environment and the type of questions you ask and the tone and the pace and the levels of inquiry and the trust and transparency with those young people, all those things, and they're covered very, very well in the presentation. And it helps you look about how do I converse with you in an environment that physically feels safe and emotionally feels safe, and how can you set and keep and maintain healthy boundaries with the young people so you too are safe when you're dispensing advice and guidance and counsel too. How do you make sure you're legally, morally, ethically safe? Talks about how young people, where their minds might be at when you're advising them, in that if they're really stressed out and really nervous and really angry, they're in their survival brain, and that survival brain can't be reasoned to. You can't go from survival to okay, I understand, and I can see where you're coming from. So they use things like Dr. Bruce Perry's 3 R's. I need to first regulate. If you're in that survival brain, I need to make sure that you're breathing and that you are relaxed and you are calm and your heart rate's managed. Because if that's not managed, I can't get through to you. I can't fire off your empathy. I can't psychologically access you. So to get people from a survival brain to a thinking brain that can reason and say, no, it's probably not right. It's probably not safe. It's probably not fair. Maybe I shouldn't do this. So it talks about how to context set with young people and how to actively listen to their wants, their needs, their concerns, how to use open-ended questions and how to reflect and summarize of what they've said to make sure you've actually got the gist of what's coming out their mouth. It can be easy to assume and say, oh, just do this, or why didn't you do that? How to make sure you take a step back, listen and absorb and really get all those facts so you can advise well and patiently and wisely. And it also talks about how you, as a professional, an advisor, a martial arts instructor, whatever, you can take a step back yourself and say, that conversation I just had, was it the best? Could I have made it better? Could it have been clearer, calmer? Could it have been more effective? What else could I have done? So it encourages self-development too with these principles, and how to empower young people to do these processes themselves, because you won't always be there. Well, they might not always tell you. So as well as giving a man a fish, teaching a man to fish, how to get them to step away, to get out of the survival brain, to think more clearly, giving them the tools to better inform themselves and make better informed decisions. And the workshop is great and has so many ways to help you do just that. And about developing that emotional intelligence. How can I have healthy relationships? Who's in my circle of trust? Who can I trust and approach? How can I understand what's reasonable and what's emotional? And how can I build empathy for the people that love me and the people I might be putting in danger? And what are those coping skills? And again, the presentation is great for all that stuff that you might not have ever considered needing to have. Talks a lot about the gut-brain axis as well, how to trust your gut and trust your instincts. And if that early conversation with that other young person isn't quite right, isn't quite legit, seems too good to be true, why are you offering me money? Why are you offering me clothes? Why are you trying to be my friend? You've never tried to be my friend before. Getting people to trust their gut and their instincts more and acting on these things early is so important for all aspects of self-defense. That kind of gut check moment of, why are you doing this? What's the reason behind it? Can I really trust you? Do I need to seek counsel with someone else before I act or do anything that may be foolish? And how to think ahead, where do you want to be in the next 5 minutes? You felt like you've been pressured, text messages blowing up your phone, people trying to call you, people trying to pressure you. How do you give young people the skills to see into their future? Because naturally, that's not something they do very well or very often. How do you say, right, 5 minutes from now, what will change if I don't respond? 5 days from now, what will happen if I don't respond? 5 years from now, what will happen if I do respond? Where's that going to go? Building in the ability to think ahead and plan ahead and not fall victim to the easy traps that are out there. It's very easy to fall victim to or become a perpetrator of knife crime. Knowing who and where your trusted adults are and what they can do. And obviously, you as a martial arts instructor, sensei, whatever, there's certain areas of transparency where you're like, look, if you tell me some of this stuff and I think it's dangerous for you, I might have to tell your mom, your dad, the police, your auntie, your uncle, whomever. There's that transparency. You've got to be honest and on the level with those young people and helping them understand who your trusted adults are, getting them to list them and think about them. Do you know, hand on heart, the number of your trusted adult? If you've been given burner phones and things to carry, can you remember your trusted adult's number? These kind of things, who they are, where they live, and how can I make sure I always have access to them? Really important skills, and the course talks a lot about that, and speaking out on these things. There's also really good material on helping advise young people about the idea of snitching and reporting, in that if you see it happening, or you see it happening to friends and relatives and loved ones, how can you encourage young people who've been brought up in a culture of snitches get stitches? How can you get them to think, actually, you know what, I better speak to my mom about this. I better speak to my coach about it. I better speak to my teacher about it. How you get them to understand that the idea and notion of snitching and reporting are two different things, and that helping keep people safe and how to be strong and safeguard yourself and others and your loved ones, that's a really important survival skill. And to divorce yourself of those notions of snitching and what snitching means and the connotations of it, really start to build in. You could be saving lives by speaking to someone, and that life could well be yours. Really important to kind of showcase to young people how they can comfortably and safely, anonymously if they must, use things like reporting and trusted adults to safeguard themselves and others. And the presentation also impacts and helps you understand that there's a whole network of support services out there that you as a professional might want to use, or that young people or families may want to use. So there's great resources from Crime Stoppers, NSPCC, Action for Children, Bullying Helpline. Most of these have their own courses and their own presentations and their own worksheets and workshops, and you should access them. Go there, dedicate a period of time. If you're going to say, oh, well, I'll focus on striking there and grappling there and verbal skills here, you should probably put a wad of time into where can I get resources? Who can I learn from? Because a lot of the people that are running these programs, they're on the front line. The lady that ran the Kinsella Trust Workshop for us, former police officer, youth support worker, now working for charities for young people and families affected by knife crime. So there's different layers to these people that bring you insights you might never have had. So there's lots and lots of stuff out there. The Ben Kinsella slides I'm showing you, there's workshops and cheat sheets and posters and presentations, all free on the website. You can go get those. You can get the workshops and presentations like we did in a group, and you can build and use many of these too and modulate them together for your needs and your purposes. It was a really great workshop to showcase that this isn't just an island of content. There's loads of other things that can help you advise and support young people, knowing the signs of bullying, how to speak to bullies, how to speak to a child that you think might be bullying others. These are all different tips, hacks, approaches that are well worth getting professional advice and guidance from. And so to kind of summarize, and I've given you a very speed run version of just the highlights, helping understand knife crime from a young person's perspective. And it's very different from the moral outrage or indignation you as an older person might have from their perspective. Understand the signs and stages of child exploitation. How are they being tested, evaluated? How are they getting brought in to this journey? Looking at the link between trauma and exploitation. If you've got emotional issues, anxiety, financial worries, how people are finding those chinks in your armor and exploiting them. Gets you to look at the current landscape in terms of music, social, video, how those can add extra pressures and extra perspectives that matter. Looking at issues with peers can escalate, how young people can manage them, how your friends and the friends of people you might have beef with can act as contributory factors to you using or being a victim of knife crime. How to have better conversations and how to link yourself or others with the best support network out there. So in summary, it was a really brilliant session. You learned so much stuff. We did the 3-hour version, 6-hour version, looks awesome. But if you could just do the one, and I know they do free ones very regularly too, especially for parents or carers. But all of the resources, all of the content is there for free on the website. Go use it. But like I said, it would be awesome if you do use it. Do chuck them a bit of a donation if you can, even if you do it after Christmas, because I know times might be hard right now. But it's really get charity. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not, we should ban all of this or do all of that or change all of this. I'm not in any way a firebrand around that kind of stuff. What I think this is very useful for is knowing how to have better conversations with young people and parents, how to watch out for signs in a more meaningful way, and it can equip you with the right knowledge you need to have the right conversation at the right time. And if that's not self-defense 101, I don't know what is. So take some time, equip yourself, inform yourself, and get out there. But thank you for listening this far. If you have, well done you. But hopefully you can take away some of the things that make the Ben Kinsella Trust training really rather marvelous indeed. So get using it, get engaging it, get advocating it with parents and other teachers and other martial arts clubs. You won't regret it. Cheers.